Chiefs news, analysis, and opinion every day. We are back for day 7 of Chiefs training camp, which includes a fight, good news for the wide receiver core, and 3 bad newses for the wide receiver core. But we will get into all of that in a moment. We're going to start here with the injury report, the pre-practice injury report, because that is going to change for tomorrow's video. This from Matt Derrick: heavier absence list at the Chiefs practice today. Linebacker Jeffrey Bossa, safety Deon Bush, cornerback Eric Scott added to the list of those not practicing. Cornerback Christian Fulton, knee. Tight end Jake Brenningstool, hamstring. And cornerback Darius Rush, hamstring, still out. I don't think there's any real reason for concern here. You always see this with training camp. You see this injury list pile up, especially early on, and for the veterans, especially late in the preseason, in training camp, because why force these guys onto the practice field if they are veterans, they have something tweaked, and they know their assignments. Lots of defensive backs on that list, and I think that is indicative not of training camp, but more of the sort of weather patterns in St. Joseph, Missouri. It is hot, and these guys do a lot of running to the defensive backs. So dehydration is definitely an issue, and it causes tweaks and turns and all sorts of things. And as players get drowsy on the field, beaten down, beaten up, the form will struggle, right? So imagine you're at work and you have to lift a box. If you're super tired, you're going to lift it differently than if you're going to try and muscle it up versus using form, right? Something like that. That is exactly what happens with professional athletes. Don't forget your C4 energy drinks to help you hydrate. This show is brought to you through the power of energy drinks. That is all I will say. I'm not officially sponsored, but C4, if you're watching, I will definitely take your money. Nick Roche chimes in: Jacob Brownlee is getting run with the first team offense today. 6'3", big-bodied wide receiver. I'm assuming that is Jason Brownlee, and in fact, Nick Roche tweeted out later that he did mean Jason Brownlee, so my assumptions paid off. Jason Brownlee is a very interesting specimen here. You have his RAS, an RAS of 8.92, despite the fact that he had a very bad 40-yard dash and a bad short shuttle as well. 6'2", 198 pounds, 16 reps on the bench press. This is a big wide receiver. 39.5-inch vertical leap and a 10-foot, 11-inch broad jump. That's the same broad jump that Xavier Worthy has. Xavier Worthy is meaningfully smaller than 6'2", 198. 40-yard dash of 4.59. 10-yard split of 1.56, 10-yard split much better than the 40-yard dash. I don't think that this is going to be a guy that you're counting on for speed, so it shouldn't be really an issue. There are all sorts of wide receivers in the NFL that get away with 40-yard dashes around that time. Brownlee impressed in minicamp as well, pardon me. And he has a reputation sort of at this point as a preseason warrior. But with the reclamation project that we are seeing with Tyquan Thornton, it might not be too much to assume that we're going to see a springboard of Brownlee's career, and the Rice suspension might be key to Brownlee's making the 53-man roster initially, as might a couple of the notes we're going to get to in a moment. But you look at this, 33 and 3/4-inch arms, nearly 34-inch arms. That is elite for an offensive tackle. So he has a huge catch radius, and this could be a guy that Mahomes hasn't really had a whole lot of these guys in the past. A week ago, I think maybe, we looked at Jason Brownlee and Demarcus Robinson's RAS scores back to back, because their RAS scores, their testing numbers, very similar, and I think Demarcus Robinson has been in the NFL for a long time, and Jason Brownlee could be another one of those guys. Demarcus Robinson has never looked quite as good as he did in Kansas City, but he has had his moments after leaving Kansas City. So something to keep an eye on there as the Chiefs try to round out this wide receiver core. Xavier Worthy nearly makes a great catch on the first throw of camp, landed awkwardly, and walked right to the injury tent. Xavier Worthy is walking back toward the field with his helmet after spending a little time in the medical tent. 9:51, that time of injury. 9:56 was him leaving the medical tent. So and he did return to practice. So we are left to assume that this isn't too bad. Maybe a tweak, whatever it is. Apparently, it's not too bad. However, hashtag self-awareness there, being able to know and read your body. Hollywood Brown pulled up in the back of the end zone. He's going off towards the medical tent for an examination. A little bit later, Hollywood Brown is leaving practice in the front of a cart. Should have an update after practice from Nate Taylor. That was from Pete, from Nate Taylor. Hollywood Brown sat in the front of the car, his cart. His day is done. Then we have, later than that even, Sky Moore just left practice in the passenger seat of a car, but didn't see what prompted it. Andy Reid is speaking today. We have a little bit of an update. Andy Reid just updated on some of the injuries. Xavier Worthy, head. Hollywood Brown, ankle. And Sky Moore, hamstring. The hamstring tweak probably going to keep Sky Moore out tomorrow, I would imagine. Probably it is an issue with dehydration. Just like the defensive backs you're seeing. Xavier Worthy with, I guess, what he thought was a concussion. See it listed there denoted as a head injury. And Hollywood Brown with the ankle. You hate to see that for Hollywood Brown. I think that at this point, 3 wide receivers in one day. We might see the Chiefs roster 6 or even 7 wide receivers just because of the threat. Just because the threat of injury is so real. We may see the defense shorted 1 spot, so instead of 25, they get 24 spots. And I think you might see the tight ends go into the season with 3 instead of 4, though the Chiefs like to have 4 tight ends on the roster because you can always call somebody up from the practice squad. Jake Brenningstool, the popular assumption there is that he is heading for injury designation. I don't know how thoroughly I believe that, but I do think that the Chiefs are likely to keep at least 1 tight end on the practice squad because they like to do that, and you might see them keep 2 because one of those bodies is going to be their 4th wide receiver once the wide receiver core gets settled in the season. You've got to remember, if Hollywood Brown misses time again, and that's just sort of the way his career has kind of gone, you have Rashee Rice's suspension to deal with. You have Xavier Worthy, who has not been injured thus far. Seems very pliable, seems to be very in tune with his body, but he is extremely undersized. So there's always that threat there. And Sky Moore I don't have Sky Moore making the team this year, but he had surgery last season to end his season while the Chiefs were shorthanded at wide receiver. So it's difficult to really think that he will make the roster this year. Still, I mean, there's going to be lots of wide receiver reps to be taken, and the Chiefs are already running thin through their wide receiver core, though they have so many right now. You have pardon me. One other thing to note, Jason Brownlee was taking those reps with the first team prior to this string of injuries. So worth keeping that in mind as well. Nick Roche chimes in, Jalen Moore playing some left guard with the first team offense. That is Kingsley Suamata'ia's spot if you are not keeping score. Kingsley Suamataia comes on after a couple plays, rotating today. This is after Pete had noted Andy Reid is working Jalen Moore at left guard to begin the 11-on-11 period. Then we have this later from Pete, 12-play long drive period. This was at the end of practice. 6 snaps at left guard for Kingsley Suamataia, 6 for Jalen Moore. That might be troubling if you were keeping score or betting on Kingsley Suamataia keeping that starting left guard spot. Then Pete says, an update on the Chiefs' offensive line based on the first 3 weeks or so here. Left tackle Josh Simmons, Creed Humphrey, and right guard Trey Smith have taken every first-team rep at their respective spots. While Jawan Taylor was on PUP, Jalen Moore took every rep there. Now that Taylor is back, he is the starting right tackle. Pete says it feels like a 3-man battle for 2 spots at left guard and right tackle. I think Kingsley Suamataia is the starter here. And I think that he could really excel in that position. A couple days ago, I did a video on the offensive line and just looked at the the RAS score for Kingsley Suamataia, which was a really good score for an offensive tackle. So if you move him into offensive guard, he has all the tools in the world to excel. But it is good to have depth, and it is great to light a fire under somebody. You have seen this coaching staff do that with players in the past. Jalen Watson, notably, often taken out of the starting lineup for other players only to find himself on the field the first week of the season. Moore, however, Jalen Moore is really taking this like a champ. A real JV mindset, just get me on the field, put me on the varsity field, put me in, coach, I'm ready to play. And for a guy with a decent-sized contract, he's doing whatever the coaches ask right now, and that will pay dividends not only for him as he goes forward in his career. Remember, he only has a 2-year contract here with the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think that they're going to try to draft over that right tackle position rather than plugging someone in because of the money situation there. But establishing himself as a guy who's willing to do anything here in Kansas City and has taken starting reps at left tackle in the past will make him more marketable once that contract is up, whether he finds himself back in Kansas City or not. So he is proving himself to be a real gamer in this situation. Then we get into the fight. First disagreement of camp, Simmons and Gelati. We saw some of this yesterday. 3 consecutive plays in pads. It was bound to happen. We have a punch. Josh Simmons punched fellow rookie Ashton Gelati after a rugged 9-on-7 period. Gelati removed Simmons' helmet. I cannot properly describe to you how miserable it is out here in St. Joe. Very hot, over 100 degrees. There are reports of it being 120 degrees on the field. And smart money as always on Kelsey for the first fight of training camp, but you'd have lost money this time. There is a history here with Simmons absolutely slingshotting Ashton Gelati in a rep yesterday. There's a video coming later tonight about Josh Simmons, pardon me. The heat is getting to me too, if you couldn't tell. And there was, I think, Ashton Gelati almost started a fight yesterday on that rep where he was slingshotted. You saw him shoot the look towards Josh Simmons, and maybe not the best sign, but I think it is a good sign that tempers are flaring. This is a sign that Ashton Gelati, regardless of who you think you are, Josh Simmons being the first-round left tackle, the franchise as it is not going to be just disrespected. It's 90 degrees and these guys are wearing full pads and sleeping in dorm rooms. Fights are inevitable. So I don't think there's anything too much to be concerned about there. Then we have this. Thornton hype. This is from Smartest Guy in the Zoom. Thornton hype might be legitimate. This rep, he shakes McDuffie twice. Look at this separation. This is from an all-pro level corner. Here is Tyquan Thornton. Here is Trent McDuffie. Now, 1 rep, 1 play, whatever. But to be able to do this to Trent McDuffie means that you are a legitimate NFL athlete, as we know, and I had to relapse on the Tyquan Thornton coverage. It's coming in a moment, but Tyquan Thornton is making this team. Tyquan Thornton could be a difference maker for the Kansas City Chiefs in the 2025 season. The speed is irreplaceable. Tyquan Thornton with another impressive snag from Mahomes at training camp. I believe this is Chamari Connor, but I can't be too sure. Look at the separation. Back corner of the end zone. It is a catch. He is in the end zone. That is a touchdown. Tyquan Thornton might not be a stranger to the end zone in this 2025 season, and it might just be, again, he's coming from the Patriots. He washed out with the Patriots. It might be that Tyquan Thornton just didn't have the right setting in New England. But again, have to relapse. Yesterday I talked about Tyquan Thornton and made the point not to bring up his RAS score. It is impossible because he's over 6'2", 6'2 and 3/10, 181 pounds, so he's thin, but he has a 36.5-inch vert. 36.5-inch vert isn't the greatest, but when you're already over 6'2" and you have 33 and 1/8 inch arms, 36.5 inches is going to get you up there, and you're going to be able to come down with the football. 10 foot 10 inch broad jump scores 9.62 out of 10, but that is not where it is most impressive. 40-yard dash of 4.28 scores 9.96 out of 10. 20-yard split of 2.46 scores 9.97 out of 10. And that might be, in this season, more important than it has been for him in the past, because it's starting to look like the Chiefs are not going to rely on him just to run players off the field. If he can get that 12 to 18 yard area of the field covered for Mahomes, then he becomes very dangerous. And he has that elite 1-4-1 10-yard split, which scores 9.99 out of 10. Absolutely monstrous 10-yard split. So I think we're going to see Tyquan Thornton not just out there a lot, but we're going to see him running a multitude of routes. Where that becomes perhaps problematic, short shuttle of 4.39 scores a 2.9 out of 10. Three cone of 7.25 scores 2.35 out of 10. So he's not elite in the cuts, right? In and out of breaks, he's going to have a little bit of problem, but you can always work on that with form. He could always have been coached up on that through his first few seasons in the NFL and could be still picking things up at that, at route running that make him more dangerous outside of just being the guy who's 40 yards downfield. And he gets 40 yards downfield fast. Xavier Worthy versus Najee Johnson. Xavier Worthy, Mahomes hits that window 100% of the time. Najee Johnson isn't the most popular cornerback in Kansas City, but he's a real NFL corner, and he is a super athlete. You can go and look at what it was that he did at the pro day there at Marshall, and it was impressive, especially his vertical leap. 42, 43, or 44 inches. I can't remember what it was, but it was eye-popping. So he's an explosive guy, and in a short field, right, I think this is probably at the 5 because you've got players standing on the 10. 5 yards. Xavier Worthy has already got that kind of separation. He's going to really make a difference this year for the Kansas City Chiefs. The next step in the evolution for Xavier Worthy is going to be something to watch, something to behold here. Then we have this note: Juju Smith-Schuster and Jalen Royals, each with physical contested touchdown catches during the red zone 11-on-11. The Chiefs have been bad in the red zone for a few seasons now. So having red zone threats is important. Jalen Royals is not the guy that I would have figured would be that red zone threat for the Chiefs. Maybe there's something in his game with which I am not familiar. This is the first mention I can recall of Juju Smith-Schuster so far in training camp. So I don't have Juju making the roster at this point in time. The injury situation could force him onto the roster. You have, again, like I've said, Juju Smith-Schuster raises the floor on the wide receiver room, but I don't think he does anything to adjust the ceiling. He has been a security blanket for Mahomes in the past. That could be what we see him doing this year for the Chiefs as well. Jalen Royals, by the way, is stacking days of plays. Jalen Royals fell to the Chiefs in the 4th round of the draft. I have no idea how it happened. He was, in my book, a second-round pick. He was in the book of a lot of scouts, a second-round pick. There was a lot of wide receivers taken in the 1st and 2nd rounds, meaning teams aren't going to unload the clip at wide receiver. So you pass over Jalen Royals a couple times, all of a sudden he finds himself on the Kansas City Chiefs and could be a real difference maker for the Chiefs this season. And that is sort of the theme of this training camp. The Chiefs, after a couple years of dearth at wide receiver, might be finding themselves with an absolute bevy of talent at the wide receiver position, something that they can use because they have Patrick Mahomes, something they might be able to use because it seems the left tackle position might be figured out. And there is, so the 2 question marks on the offensive line, as alluded to earlier by Pete, left guard and right tackle. Well, they have, like Pete said, 3 guys for 2 spots. And Jalen Moore is doing whatever the coaches ask him to do. If he can start in the NFL and be more than serviceable at left tackle, I believe he can start and be more than serviceable at right tackle. that means he can start and be more than serviceable at left guard. We saw last season Mike Caliendo take 237 snaps at left guard and not give up a single sack. Do I think that Mike Caliendo is the special type of talent that can play 237 snaps under regular circumstance and not give up a sack? I don't. We saw several of the Chiefs' offensive linemen give up a sack every 50 to 60 plays, namely the right tackle and whoever was playing left tackle. But it is such a different set of skills. I hesitate to say this because these are all really super athletes, but such a lesser set of skills to excel at guard than tackle that I think any of these guys could play left guard and the Chiefs could get away with it. I think there's a couple of these guys that could play left guard and the Chiefs really have a starter on their hands, really have someone who could dominate at the position. Kingsley Suamataia is chief among them. You look at his skills and his abilities, and he can dominate. He was able to dominate on some running plays last year at left tackle. He just struggled in isolation. There's much less isolation at guard than at tackle. So that is what it is, and the Chiefs are going to have the manpower to figure out those two spots on the offensive line. And if Patrick Mahomes can get 3 seconds, 4 seconds, maybe even, I hesitate to say it, 5 seconds to throw the ball downfield with Tyquan Thornton, 4.28, Xavier Worthy, 4.21, and Jalen Royals, 4.42 on the field at the same time, it could really mean the Chiefs are on a revenge tour. That is all I have for this video. I will be back later with another video about the offensive line, about one player in particular. If you've been paying attention, probably you know who that is. But if you like or appreciate this sort of thing, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel. I've dropped a video every day, at least one video every day for about 2.5 years now. So consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.